Again, I have here with me Azra Mirza, and today we are going to be talking about the role of women in Islam and a little bit about a great personality in history called Bibi Khadija Salamullahi alayha. So, Azra Mirza, would you like to start off by saying anything about what you believe the role of Islam is?
Yes, I think first we should address the misconceptions that people have on women in Islam, especially living in the West. A lot of people have the misconception that women in Islam don't have an important role in society. They feel like Islam is a misogynistic religion, and that's not the case because honestly, Islam has put so much value on the female gender. I mean, they were gifted like the opportunity to become mothers, and it's just so important to understand that women are so crucial to obviously society because we're mothers, we raise the children, we support our families. So just three things I want to address. Firstly, to talk about the misconceptions that people have about women in Islam, in the West. The first thing is that obviously people think that Islam is a misogynistic religion. And we already addressed that by saying that women have a really crucial role, and we'll cover that later on. But secondly, I think the reason why people have these misconceptions is because of the rise of feminism. And we see that a lot throughout the world. There's this movement called feminism. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about it, where people believe that men and women are supposed to be like complete equals. They're supposed to have equal rights, equal everything. And the reality, of life is that women and men are different. And there's some rights that are given to women. There are some rights that are given to men because we're different genders. Obviously, Allah created us with differences. So therefore, we cannot be put on the same exact, scale. So feminism, this rise of feminism, this movement believes that since women have to be equal, anything that counters that notion that women are equal is just, consequently they're misogynistic. And that's not the case because Islam focuses on something more important than equality. It focuses on justice. And I want to bring up a quote by Albert Einstein, which a lot of us hear, and he talks about education in this quote, but I think it's a good quote to, really get a feel of what Islam means by justice is more important than equality. So Albert Einstein said that if we judge a fish's intelligence by his ability to climb a tree, then he will forever live his life thinking that he's stupid. So basically the quote is saying that if we judge different, in that quote specifically, if we judge the different species of animals based on one thing alone, their ability to climb a tree, they will never succeed in life because since they're different creations of Allah, they have different talents, different things that they're supposed to do, different skills, different contributions to make to society. So if all of us expect to, fulfill the same exact role, we're always going to be disappointed because Allah created two genders. If we were supposed to have the same exact role, then He would only create one. But there are two, so there obviously has to be a balance to society, and that's why we have two different roles. So that's the main takeaway. Whenever someone tells you that, whenever a Western person comes and tells you that, is Islam misogynistic because they have different roles for women and different roles for men, tell them no. There's no discrimination. Gender is not a burden. Gender is just there because Allah obviously made these humans different, men and women. But the truth is that justice is better than equality. So that's, I think, the takeaway of that part of the discussion.
Okay. Azra, that was very beautifully said. Like Azra said, people in society, like outside, like people besides Muslims, they view Muslim women as being oppressed in some way. Like they're under some sort of oppressive dictatorship by the males in their family, by their husbands, by their brothers, by their fathers. And they perceive this because they feel like women have limitations. But, as Muslim women, we know that this isn't true. We have so many opportunities for us to push forward the message of Islam, but outsiders, like going back to what Azra was saying, the misconceptions that these people have, we really have to see that these essentially aren't true. That men and women are different, and Allah created them different so they can do different things and contribute to society in different ways. And like as Muslim women, we really have to take this and we have to bring forward the message of Islam. Now, going back to the misconceptions, people believe that women are oppressed. They believe that they're forced into marriage and forced to do things that they don't want. But we know that, we have a choice in everything we do, and then, we have our own rights. So we have to understand that ourselves. So moving on to how Azra said that men and women are different. They were made, God made them in different ways so then they can serve different purposes. And we really have to understand this and know that, as women in Islam, that we have these different roles and we have different purposes. Now, moving on along, let's see what the actual role of women in Islam is. Now, this starts at different levels. So let's look at the first level, and that's like individuals, like by ourselves. So on the individual level, as Muslim women, our role is to go towards personal development. Like, we have to personally develop to become the best people that we can possibly be. We have to be like the best versions of ourselves. So that's also very, very important. So moving on along, when we go to, like I mentioned before, that we're going to be talking about Bibi Khadija salamullahi alayha. She's a very prominent example of this. That, in the era that she was living in, she was living in a time in the Arab culture where women were, it was like women were treated in the worst way possible. They were condemned. They were treated like animals essentially, because, when you knew that you had a baby born and it was a woman, then, you would bury her alive. Like, now if we look back and think, like, in our society today, that's not how things are. Like, mothers, they cherish their children, but in these times in the Arab culture, this is what they did. They completely disrespected women and they would bury them alive. But despite these times, and these were the times that Bibi Khadija salamullahi alayha lived in, she was able to do so much. Like, I'm sure you all already know that, she was a business tycoon. She was able to do so much in the time that she was living in. So going back to Azra here, so do you want to elaborate on Bibi Khadija salamullahi alayha's contributions towards Islam?
Yes. Actually, I want to take a little time to talk about how Hazrat Khadija, she was a woman beyond her time. Because as Rabab said, during that time, girls were buried alive, honestly. People, they prayed for sons. If they didn't have a son, too bad. You drop your daughter in the sand, bury her, you call it a day, you go home, right? So when the Prophet came, that was like one of the main focuses, right? To, stop this gender inequality. But prior to Islam, Hazrat Khadija, we all know, she was a wealthy businesswoman. In fact, she was equal to our version of today's millionaires. She was so wealthy, and this was a time before Islam. So before we had all these wonderful, beautiful teachings on, detaching ourselves from the world, on not being, obsessed with money. Lady Khadija, she was so wealthy, and even without the guidance of this religion, she was so responsible with her wealth, and she knew that she was of this high, wealthy social class, and yet she still decided to marry the Holy Prophet, who at the time wasn't as rich as her. So, it would only, in that society, it would only make sense if a woman is so rich, she needs to marry a man with equal or higher standards. But Hazrat Khadija was so beyond that she understood that the Holy Prophet, in his actions, in the way he spoke, the way he walked, the way he dressed, the way he interacted with people, his loyalty, his respect, everything else that he did in his life. Whenever she saw him, she understood that he was essentially a really pure human being, and she knew, okay, money is not a concern here. This is the man that I think is going to be a good match for me. And not only did she think that he was a good match, she herself proposed to his side. Because culturally, even till today, a lot of cultures believe that it's bad if the woman's side goes to the man first. A lady has to sit around and wait until men, they want her. No. Lady Khadija taught us that if you go and you find an opportunity, if you find a good man, and if you realize that he's worth it for the correct values, not social class, not which family he is, Sayyid, non-Sayyid, not if he's wealthy or if he doesn't have enough money as you, but who he is as a person. If he is a good person, then you yourself can go and your side can go and propose to his side. And alhamdulillah, that's how one of the greatest marriage ever happened, because she was so above all this wealth and social class and all this materialistic gain that she understood the value of the Holy Prophet. And I feel like she was so intelligent to be able to make that decision despite all the wealth that she had.
Yeah, beautiful points Azra made here. I would also like to just mention to you all that we're doing live calls today. So the number is 925-523-3766, and you can call in anytime. And if you want to, talk about, contribute to our discussion about the roles of women in Islam or about Bibi Khadija Salaam alayha, feel free to call in and we'll be happy to talk to you today. So now, extending off of what Azra said, she made beautiful points, and I completely agree that Bibi Khadija Salaam alayha's personality is literally it's so great, and us as Muslim women, we should be looking up to her. I mean, she, like Azra mentioned, that, she approached the Prophet, she went to him for who he actually was. She didn't look into wealth, despite how wealthy she was. Like, if we look at now, like, if you're like a really wealthy person, you would want someone at that level, but she went to the Prophet because he had such a great and high personality, and she approached him, and like Azra said, that was such a beautiful marriage was made. I believe we have a call coming in. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So would you like to mention anything towards our discussion about the roles of women, or anything about Bibi Khadija?
Yes. I think it's really inspiring how Bibi Khadija, she was the first woman of Islam, and even though there were so many people that were against her when she first started, saying that she wasn't a true woman and that she was in her family becoming Muslim, she still stood by the Prophet Muhammad, and she still amended to all the rules of Islam.
Yeah, that's very, very true. What's your name?
Isha.
Oh, okay. It's very nice to meet you, Isha. Yes, we completely agree that, Bibi Khadija Salaam alayha, she had such a great personality, and, she really stood up in the time, and yes, that's very beautiful. Do you have anything else to say?
I really think that all of us should really amend to what Bibi Khadija has done. We should all try to be just like her. That should be our real role model as women.
Yes, you are very, very right. And that's kind of like what me and Azra were getting to in our discussion, that, we have to use Bibi Khadija's example to know that, us as women, we have the potential to do this. If she can yeah, exactly. Like, if she can do like whatever she did in such hard times, like I mentioned before, women were condemned in the time she lived in. If she can do so much, if she was such a business tycoon in her time, we as women in the society we live in today, we should know that we have the potential to do so much. And like, it's really nice that you called in today. Do you have anything else that you would like to mention?
I think that I hope that we can all be like her again, and just try to use her life as a way to realize that even though, like, sometimes us as girls, we think that we are not, as women, that we aren't really shown a lot in Islam, but we actually have so much power, we have so much potential to be so much, that we have to realize that Allah has put us on a high pedestal, and we just don't realize it.
Yeah, you're very, very right. Like, us as women, especially, how women, we feel like we have limitations. We really shouldn't think of it that way, and we should know that we have this potential to do so much. So thank you so much, and Ramadan.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Ramadan Mubarak.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, so yeah, that was our first live call. So like what she was saying, the person who just called, we really have to look up to Bibi Khadija Salaam alayha, and follow her example, and know that we have the potential to do so much. Don't think that just because you're a woman, I can't do anything. You have the potential to do so much and make such a great difference. And we can see that in many personalities and current events today. Like, I'm sure you guys have heard of the lady who won the Nobel Peace Prize. Her name is Tawakkul Karman, and she was a Muslim woman, and at the time she was the youngest Nobel Peace Prize holder. Like, when she got the Nobel Peace Prize, she was the youngest one to get it, and she was a Muslim woman. And when we look at her, we should look at her personality and see that if she can do something so great, we can do it too. She was a human rights activist in Yemen, and she did so much. She did protest every week just so she could oppose the oppressive government, and she came through so much that she brought this revolution to the United States. She came to New York, and she met with the UN secretary to address these issues, and she was so successful that she got a Nobel Peace Prize. Like, imagine, like, that is a very, very difficult prize to win, and through her efforts, she was a Muslim woman, she was able to do that. So through her example, we need to see that, we have the potential to do so much, and that we shouldn't think that anything limits us at all, essentially. So that's also very, very important. We have another call coming in. Assalamu alaikum.
My name is Sarah Money, and I'm 9 years old.
Oh, it's really nice to meet you. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, I'm good. Do you have any questions, or would you like to contribute to our discussion about the role of women? Anything you would like to say?
Yes. I would like to say how Bibi Khadija inspires me.
Oh, okay. So how does she inspire you?
Bibi Khadija was the first woman to accept Islam, and she helped the Prophet spread Islam.
Yes, that's very true. You're very right. She helped with her business and everything. Without her, she was an integral part of spreading Islam in that time. What's your name? Could you say that again? Okay, yeah, it's very nice to meet you. Would you like to say anything else to add to the discussion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Other people. She also used her wealth to help the poor, and we can do that too when you get birthday money easy.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, she gave a lot of her money to the poor, and she made a lot of great contributions. So it was very nice talking to you today, and Ramadan Mubarak.
Well, thank you, bye.
Thank you so much. Khuda Hafiz, thank you. Okay, so moving on to, that was another great live caller. So yes, it's very true that we should really, like her, we have to look up to Bibi Khadija Salamullahi alayha and kind of follow in her footsteps. And she was actually one of the greatest women that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned. So moving on, adding on to Bibi Khadija, Azra, I'm going to come back to you. How did Bibi Khadija show that women can be great supporters and, great leaders in the time? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, honestly, the callers were so correct. Hazrat Khadija is truly a role model for not only every girl and woman out there, but for every human being, because she showed that, especially for women and girls, that you could be a woman in a society. Think of 1,000 years ago in Arab culture, you could be a woman in a society that doesn't respect your gender, that doesn't even want your gender to be born, and you can still be so successful. She was such a prominent businesswoman. She was the one in charge of the men. She was the one who was telling the men what to do. She was the boss, So she was the one who had so many assets, so many connections. She was going out of her home and traveling and making all these business decisions, and she was using her intelligence and her capability to have all these huge responsibilities. And then after getting married to the Holy Prophet, when the Holy Prophet was granted prophethood, and when he was supposed to spread Islam everywhere, that was an extremely difficult task. Because remember, this is a society where people were worshipping idols, where they were just, they were just blind and ignorant, and they were greedy, and they were doing everything that Islam was against. So for the Prophet to come in the middle of the society and to change everything, to turn it 180 degrees, that is a tough job. And he faced so much ridicule and so much trauma from the people. He was oppressed verbally, physically, emotionally. People threw trash on him, they threw rocks at him. And the Prophet would say so many times that Hazrat Khadija and his daughter Hazrat Fatima, they were his support during this time. If it wasn't for them, it would be so hard for the Prophet to deal with this emotionally, spiritually, mentally, because it's so hard to be alone. To have these people ridicule you on the streets, and then when you go home, at least you have someone who cleans the trash off your body, who gives you some food, who supports you, who says kind words to you, who makes sure that you're okay. So this just shows that women are capable of being so strong and independent, and of being capable of holding businesses, but also we are capable of providing so much support to our families. We are like the foundation, we are the support system for our family. We are like the heart of the home. our children, our parents, whichever position you're in right now, whether you're a daughter, a mother, a sister, a wife, a daughter-in-law, wherever you stand, you have such an important contribution to make in your family. Women are the heart of the family. When they're not there, just the house feels empty. And when the husband comes home and he's tired, or the father, or anyone, whenever the men are really tired and they just need a support system, the women are there for them. But that doesn't just mean that the women are just there to support the men. We have so many other talents and skills, and Hazrat Khatija showed both things. So I think that's why she's so important, because she shows that women are capable of being such a strong support system and being the center of a family, the foundation of a family. And on top of that, that doesn't mean you're stuck at home, serving people all day. You can actually go out and be a prominent member of society. You can manage lots of money, manage all these responsibilities, manage other people, and be like such a strong person in the social class like Hazrat Khatija was. So she had the best of both worlds. She ruled her home and she ruled the business world. So that's just something that was really, really great, and that's something that a lot of girls and women can take away. That don't let your gender be a setback or ever get in the way of what you think you can achieve, because women are capable of so many things, and Hazrat Khatija 1,000 years ago taught us exactly that.
Yeah, that Azra, that was really beautifully said, and I completely agree on all of these points. That Bibi Khadija salam alaiha, she told us that that women are the support system for their family. And besides being at home, doing supporting your family, being there, women should also come out and make a difference in the community. And that's kind of how that's basically what their role is, to be a support system at home and to come out and support the society around them. And also, the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallam, like Azra said, that he needed Bibi Khadija salam alaiha there for him to successfully spread Islam. Like, without her help there, Islam would not be spread so easily. Like, she was there as a support system for him, both at the home and out in society. So her presence was very integral. And looking back at her, what she did 1,000 years ago, we have to see that we have to play a great role in society too. Like, we all, of course, staying at home and being the support system of the house is very important, but in addition to that, we have the role of coming out and making a difference and trying our best to influence the world. Like I mentioned before, Tawakkul Karman, like, she was a Nobel Prize holder. We should follow in her footsteps and try to do what we can to make a difference in our society, and that's very, very important. And I'd like to mention someone else called Asma Jahangir. She was a person who started the first all-woman law firm in Pakistan, and she kind of defended the rights of the Rohingya in Myanmar and the Palestinians. And she was able, imagine, like, opening your own all-woman law firm in Pakistan. So she was able to do that. And looking at all of these ladies in current events, we have to see that we have the potential to do so much, and if we can just come out and we can contribute, we can do a lot. You had to add something.
I actually want to add two more women that came to mind. One was obviously none other than Hazrat Zainab, because when Imam Hussein passed away, the message of Islam was literally on her shoulders, the responsibility of spreading that, and she started spreading it through majalis, and that's how the message of Islam continued after Imam Hussein's sacrifice. So Bibi Zainab, in a way, after Imam Hussein, she was the one responsible for upholding and spreading the religion. So she, in a way, saved our religion too. And then another woman that comes to mind is Malala, because you talked about the Nobel Peace Prize, and you said what was the woman that you mentioned? What was her name?
Tawakkul Karman.
Okay, you said at the time she was the youngest to win. Yeah, so now currently Malala is the youngest Nobel Peace Prize winner, correct?
Yes, true.
So I just found it so interesting how in the history of the world, the two youngest Nobel Peace Prize winners were both women. They were both young girls. Age is not a limitation. Your gender is not a limitation. Malala in Pakistan, as a high school girl, she stood up for the rights of young girls to pursue an education in a society where girls were just told to stay at home and cook and clean, and they were bound by cultural limitations and cultural mindsets. And Malala said, women are above all of that. We're so capable of an education. We're capable of standing up for other people's rights and for just really taking a stand in society and for speaking out against oppression. So that's just so wonderful how both of them, they won Nobel Peace Prize sacrifices despite their age, despite their gender. They were so strong and independent. Malala took a bullet to the head and she's still advocating for women's rights till today.
Yeah.
So just women are so courageous and so strong, and they have a really, really strong heart and a free spirit. So I really like that.
Yeah, that's very true. These Azra is completely right. You know, these people like Malala and these people, it's very important for us to look up to these people and realize that these people are Muslim women, you know, Muslim women. So they're just like us. So that kind of signals to us that, you know, we have the capability to do things like this, and we shouldn't remain like, you know, in a shell, like what do you call it, like in a box. You know, we have to come out and make a difference. Whatever we can do, and know that we can do it. We have another caller. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Hi, what's your name?
Abiha Heather.
Abiha Heather, it's nice to talk to you today. Did you want to contribute to our discussion?
Yes. My question was, what is one significant thing about Bibi Khadija that really stands out?
Oh, one significant thing about Bibi Khadija. Azra, do you want to?
Personally, the most significant thing about her, there were so many significant things about her. She's one of the greatest women of all time. But to me personally, in my opinion, the two things that stood out, which I already mentioned, was number one, that in a time when women weren't respected, she was still one of the most wealthy and prominent businesswomen of her society. So she was up there. She was so, she was into, all the politics of, the economy of the time, because economy and, like working, it's never, a clean business. Like, they say business is dirty sometimes. And she was able to navigate throughout that with such honesty, with such dedication and commitment and good morals. And she was up there as one of the, most prominent members of the, economic class. And then secondly was the fact that as Prophet Muhammad was, spreading Islam, she was the one, they say behind every successful man is a successful woman, right? So she was the one who gave the Prophet, the courage and I'd say she respected him, and she gave him the will sometimes to keep continuing what he was doing, because it got so hard for one man to carry that burden on his shoulders. But she was there, she supported him, and she herself helped spread Islam. You wouldn't think that the Prophet was always there to talk to the woman, right? So just like Bibi Zainab, after Imam Hussein's death, she went and spread Islam. Hazrat Khadija was obviously the first person to accept the religion of Islam after the Prophet. So she was spreading Islam, and also she was a really important part of society, because she was such a wealthy businesswoman. So she was really important in those two aspects. That's my opinion.
Yeah. So do you have any other questions, or would you like to add anything on? Abiha?
No, I don't have any other questions, but that was really nice to know.
Yeah. Thank you so much for calling today, and Ramadan Mubarak.
You too. Khudafis.
Khudafis. We have another caller. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Hi, what's your name?
This is Jafry.
Okay, hi.
Yes. I think I just want to say that you guys are doing a great job, both you and Azra. You are doing a great job, and I want to congratulate both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Would you like to mention anything else? Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay. So moving on with Bibi Khadija Salam alayha, like what we were talking about, how she was a very wealthy woman, and she used her wealth to expand Islam. She would give money not only to the poor, she would give money to the widows and the orphans, and she would also give money to girls who needed to get married. She would give money for their dowries, and she was like, let me give a comparison, she was like the Bill Gates of her time, and all the money that she would earn, literally every single part of it, she would give it away to the poor, and all the way until the end of her life, she would just keep giving money. So just, if you just put yourself in your shoes, like say you just got a new cell phone, like you just got, the latest iPhone X or iPhone 8 or whatever, and if like as soon as you got it, if someone asked you, oh, can I give this, can you give this to the poor, or can you give this to a charity foundation or whatever, how willing do you think you would be to give away your brand new phone? And to be honest, I would be a little hesitant. I just got this phone, and or if you were asked to give anything else. So we have to think of Bibi Khadija as like that kind of person who would give anything and everything just to help her society, and she would give it to these poor people. And that's how she was able to make such a big difference, and that's essentially how she was able to spread the message of Islam. And so like she was like the Bill Gates of her time. So now moving on, Azra, I haven't would you want to mention
I have
something?
one last thing to mention,
Go
yes.
ahead.
Now this actually goes back to the role of Islam, the role of women in Islam. And I just want to point out something that I read the other day, and we always know this, but just reading it and refreshing our minds, it kind of just hits us. I realized that is currently, how like feminism is a big thing, and feminists, they're countering Islam by saying, oh, Islam is the religion that's misogynistic, feminism is the way to go, Islam is not right, and Islam is giving unequal rights to women. I just want to make a point, right? Islam, in the West, back in the day, 1,000 years ago, the Europeans were not given a right to, take part in society. A lot of European women in the West, they stayed home. They were just left to take care of their husband and their children, to take care of the house things, to cook and clean. But 1,000 years ago in Islam, women were given the right. After Islam came, women were given the right to vote. They were given the right to inherit property. They were given the right to actually have a say in who they married, because arranged marriages were the norm. Women had no say in who they would marry. But no, not only could women choose who to marry, but they could go and actually propose to the guy's side. They could inherit property. They could take part in politics, which is something that women were not allowed to do. And they could also have a prominent role in the working class, just like Hazrat Khadija, right? She was so wealthy, and she was such a prominent businesswoman. So women could do all those things, and all these rules, these rules that enabled women to take part in society, almost as just like men do, was something that came 1,000 years ago. And just a few hundred years ago was when women were given these rights in the European nations. So the thing about feminism was that the concept of feminism is actually a governmental tactic, because I think in the 1800s, I'm not sure if I got the date right, but in the 1800s, that was around the time of the Industrial Revolution, when everyone was I think that's 1900s? I don't know when it was. Around the Industrial Revolution, all the men were working, and they needed lots of people in the working class. The men weren't enough. Meanwhile, all the women in the West, they were busy at home. So the government said, we need to manipulate these women into coming out of their homes and working for cheap, giving us cheap labor, because we need all this help for, all these companies and factories. So what they did was they created feminism, and they said, okay, women, listen, you are just sitting at home, rotting away, don't you want to work and be like men? So, come out and work with them. So the women said, you know what, that's so right, we should be able to work as well. So then they started advocating to have equal working rights like men. So the government actually manipulated their desire to work, and they were actually giving them less pay. They were overworking them. They were letting them work in very, very dangerous conditions. So the government actually created this feminist mindset to kind of trick women into becoming like sheep, and to becoming part of their really, really twisted, evil plot to rule the Industrial Revolution and to work in these factories for low pay. And it was just basically a governmental tactic, feminism, to kind of exploit women even more. So feminism did not start with the concept of empowering women. It really started by the government, and it just was a lie. Whereas 1,000 years ago, Islam, for the it gave true actual rights to women, the pure rights, out of no greed, no governmental tactic. It allowed women to live their lives and contribute to society way before European nations did. So if anyone from the West ever throws that feminist card at you, that, oh, feminism is the way to go, equal rights, tell them the history of feminism. And you yourself go do research about the history of feminism. Where did it originate? Who started it? What's the feminist movement of today? And then you go and compare the movement of Islam and what that did for women. You compare the two, and then you'll have your answer for anyone in the West who thinks Islam is misogynistic.
Yeah, Azra, that was very great, interesting points, how I never actually really thought about that, how the government actually manipulated us into putting this feminist card into the whole picture, and thinking, oh, women have this and this. But if we look at our religion itself, it values women so much, and it empowers us already, and we have to just kind of focus on that, on our role as Muslim women. And like Azra also mentioned before, that Muslim women themselves nowadays think that, we have limitations on rights. Like if, like we're kind of moving into another topic here about, we have kind of misconceptions about ourselves because, we think, about the whole rule about the inheritance, for example. Like it's said that, after the parents pass away, then the inheritance, 2/3 of it goes to the son, and then 1/3 of it goes to the woman. And if you just look at that, the statement by itself, then you're probably going to think, oh, why does the man get more? That's not fair to women. But if you in depth actually look at it, there's like a logical and a religious reason behind all of these things. And like Azra mentioned, like this was one of our very first points, that men and women are created differently because they're suited for different tasks, and therefore they have different rights. And those rights are there for these reasons, so they can contribute to their tasks and make an effective society. So moving on to these limitations that, that appear, they're not really limitations, but they appear as limitations, like the whole inheritance issue. Or for example, there's also a thing where if there's an incident, then you need, for a male, you only need one male witness, but for every one male witness, you need 2 female witnesses. And so you're like, oh, why do you need only one male witness, and why do you need 2 female witnesses? So, things like this that we really were like, this doesn't really make sense to us, But we have to look back and see that, these things are here for a reason, and that's because men and women are made differently. So, Azra, do you have any comments on how, why do you think women have these supposed limitations?
There are many reasons why, but just I think the main takeaway is that women and men are different. We have different talents, different skills, different capabilities, and obviously because of that, certain rules are certain rules are different when it comes to men and women because of just the innate differences that we have. For example, if we're so big on equality, right? The men can start questioning how come women were gifted, motherhood. Heaven is under the feet of the mother, right? Do you ever hear heaven is under the feet of the father? I mean, you don't, right? So it's all in the mother. Heaven is under the mother's feet. Also, something interesting I heard. They say that if a family raises 4 daughters, is it 4 daughters? I believe there's a hadith. If you raise, I think the number is 4. Please fact check after this. But if you raise 4 daughters, you are given a place in heaven. If you raise 4 daughters in the way of Allah and you teach them Islam and everything, you will go to heaven. So just the fact that having daughters and just being a mother, anything that requires motherhood or just do yourself, like if you're a daughter out there, that you are such an integral part of the family, and Islam actually puts so much importance on women like that. But to answer your question on why the rules are different, it's just that we are made differently, and women are given certain perks about being women. Men are there's certain perks to being a man, and it's not a reality that one gender has it better than the other, because every gender has its perks, and Allah made us different because there are hidden reasons that we may not understand. Our human minds, we always want to know the reason behind everything. And we need to understand that living in today's society where feminists are always, advocating for complete equal rights, it kind of gets distracted, and we kind of get more inclined to their way of thinking. And then we kind of lose sight of the true way of thinking that we're supposed to have. We have justice on one side, we have equality on the other side, right? So justice is the true thing, because what justice does is what equality does basically is it gets everyone, no matter what their talents are, and forces them all on the same scale. So you can come from whatever background and class, but you'll be forced on the same level. That's equality. So it won't be considerate towards people who need extra help or people who are already better at certain things. Equality is on the same line. But what justice does, it gets your own personal strengths, your individual strengths and your weaknesses, and it creates a way of life that is best suited for you as an individual. So for women, our strengths and our weaknesses, that is how our responsibilities are revolved, because we have certain tasks that we are more talented and more capable of doing than men are. And similarly, there are things that men are better at doing. So that's how our responsibilities and our roles in Islam are kind of divided. And obviously it's always important to be read on the matter and to do lots of research. But I think the main takeaway is that it's all because of Allah's bigger knowledge of things, and that he knows truly what is best for women, what is best for men. And if it wasn't best for women, whatever rules you think, oh, women get like less inheritance, if that wasn't best, Allah would never do that. Allah is not unjust. So how dare we question the justice and the decision making of Allah? It is all for a reason. So I think that's the main takeaway. Just trust that Allah knew what was best, and that we have different rules because of the fact that in our innate nature we are different humans.
Yes, that was beautifully said, Azra. Yes, like we have to look at the fact that, you know, Allah knows all. You know, the way Allah He knows all. You know, He knows everything, and He knows that what we're good at and what men are good at, and that's why He made us different, so we can serve different functions in society. So we have to it's all essentially about our trust in the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and just kind of logically looking that, you know, men and women are physically different, and therefore we are suited to do different tasks. So that's kind of just how we have to look at that. So now going back to the question that I asked before about like why do women have these limitations. For example, like I mentioned about the witnesses thing. Why do you need 2 women witnesses and only 1 male witness? Like why do males get more inheritance than women do? But first of all, let's look at this kind of like first in the Islamic perspective, then let's look at it in like the logical perspective. Like Islamic perspective, as Muslim women, we should think about first of all our usuluddin, like Tawheed and Adal. First we have to, the Tawheed is, you know, the belief in the oneness of Allah. Like Azra mentioned before, we have to know that Allah knows everything and Allah knows what's best for us, right? Second one, when we look at Adala, that is justice in Allah, belief in the justice of Allah. If you truly believe that Allah is just, you know that whatever roles or limitations, supposed limitations that He's put on us are there for a reason. That's because we as women have different functions and we're built differently than men. So looking at that, based on this first layer, which I'll call like the religious perspective, we should see that, you know, that if we have belief in Allah and if we have belief in the justice of Allah, we should realize that, you know, what our tasks are and whatever we have to do is there for a really good reason, and that's ultimately the best for us and best for the society around us. Now let's look into the perspective, say, of a non-Muslim perspective. Like if a non-Muslim were to say, oh, you know, Muslim women are oppressed, you know, they have, you know, the whole inheritance issue, or they can't be marjas, or they can't lead namaz or anything like that. The logical perspective would be like that, you know, going back to the witnesses thing, that you need 2 women witnesses and you only need 1 male witness. Like if you look at a woman, you know that, you know, women are psychologically, they're more emotional, you know. So because women are more emotional, that's why Allah said, you know, you need 2 female witnesses besides only 1, because of, you know, the mind, how the mind is made of women. And if you look at the physical aspects, we know that men are more physically strong, right? So they have different roles in there. So that's why there's like supposed limitations on women.
Yeah, like for the inheritance issue, right? In Islam, it is the man's responsibility to be the breadwinner of his family. So if a man does not have enough money, and if his parents die, of course, since it's his responsibility to support his family financially, he will naturally get a little more money, you know. And just because, and to every single ruling there's a different reason, right? So for inheritance, that's the reason, and then for the in court, she said, you know, women are naturally, we are more emotional, so some women might manipulate the story, or, you know, it's different. But never ever think that women are any less because of these rules, because one Malana actually told me this one thing, and it never left me. We had this discussion on, you know, why women are not allowed to do things like lead men in prayer and things like that. You know, does that mean we're less or we're not equal? So the Mulana told me, he's like, you know, Azra, do you think technically can Hazrat Fatima ever lead a man or any man in prayer? And, you know, I said, no, Hazrat Fatima technically she cannot lead a man in prayer. So then the Mulana asked Azra, does that mean in any way that Hazrat Fatima is less than any man because she can't lead them in prayer? And then I said, oh my God, of course not. She is the best, she is the most pure woman, one of the most pure humans to ever exist on the face of this earth. So the Mulana said, that's the point exactly. Just because we have different rules and different responsibilities and we have some limitations does not mean that we're any less. In fact, gender is not a limitation to how close or how valuable you are in the eyes of God. So what truly matters is your niyat, your intentions, your deeds, and that can make you even better than any man because of who you are as a person inside. So just like Hazrat Fatima, she can't lead a man in prayer technically, but she is still way better than any man you'll ever know. Similarly, if you yourself, you truly have good niyat, good intention, you do good deeds for the sake of Allah, you follow your responsibilities, then that's truly, oh, we have a call. Okay, then
Yeah.
wrap it up.
We have a call coming in. So, hello, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Hi, what's your name?
My name is Ismat.
Ismat. Oh, nice to talk to you today, Ismat. Would you like to say anything today?
Yes, towards Bibi Khadija, it's kind of different when it comes to her because she's literally the support system and the backbone of our Holy Prophet.
Yes.
And it's also different because these days women in Islam are sometimes looked down upon or said that they don't have equal importance to men or not as much significance as men, even though Bibi Khadija has such a major role in our religion.
Yes, I agree. She had a really great role, especially in the times that she was living. She played a really great role in spreading the message of Islam. So we should really look up to her like as a role model and know that we have the potential to do so much like she did in her time, especially since we're not living in the times that she did. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Yeah.
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Ismat. Have Ramadan Mubarak. Okay, bye-bye. We also have another caller. Hello, assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Hi, what's your name?
My name is Mirza.
Oh, hi, Midat. Would you like to say anything regarding our discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question. So I completely agree with what y'all were saying, but how do you propose to spread this message on a global scale? Because, as you know, non-Muslims often view Islam as a radical religion that undermines the importance of women, and they often think that we define them as inferior to men. Of course, this isn't true, but how do you propose to spread this message?
So there's different ways that we can spread this message, on this scale. Like the great women that we mentioned before who earn Nobel Peace Prizes, we have so many opportunities for us to go out, and this includes, taking efforts. Maybe if you have something you're passionate about, leading something like volunteering maybe in your community, or maybe doing protests to advocate for things that you're really passionate about. And that's really essentially what's going on here. Like more people are coming out and they're protesting and for things that they want. And these are just kind of different ways that we can kind of make an influence. If that answered your question.
Yeah, one more thing. Whenever someone questions that, just tell them, like I said, research the start of feminism and then research how Islam gave certain rights to women 1,000 years prior to all these feminist movements and everything, and just really tell them that Islam truly stood up for women's rights way before feminism existed. So really doing our research really makes us understand that Islam actually stood up for women's rights in a time where no one else was.
Yeah, that's very true. Do you have anything else to say, or if that answered your question?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Ramadan Mubarak.
You too.
We have another caller. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
हेलो वालेकुम अस्सलाम मैं निकत सरदा बात कर रही हूँ और मुझे आपसे एक सवाल ये पूछना है। सबसे पहले तो बेटा बहुत मुबारक, आप लोग इतना नेक काम कर रहे हैं, इतना इंफॉर्मेटिव काम कर रहे हैं जो कि यूथ के लिए बहुत बड़ी मिसाल है।
Yeah.
हेलो।
Yes, hello, yes. Yeah, thank you.
मुझे can I talk to you in Urdu?
Yeah. Yes.
अच्छा, ओके। मुझे ये पूछना है बेटा कि जिस वक्त जनाबे खदीजा का विसाल हुआ है यानी इंतकाल हुआ है, वफात हुई है उनकी, तो उस वक्त बीबी फातिमा की क्या उम्र थी? और दूसरे ये कि जिस वक्त क्या जनाबे खदीजा का इंतकाल शेब अबी तालिब नहीं हुआ था कि कहाँ पर हुआ था? और आपका जिस वक्त इंतकाल हुआ था तो उस वक्त आप बीबी खदीजा की उम्र क्या थी?
So basically Bibi Fatima sallallahu alaiha was 5 years old when her mother passed away. And about the other question, can I come back to you about that? Do you have any other questions?
नो थैंक यू बेटा, अभी तो मुझे एक यही था, एक दो क्वेश्चंस और मैं अभी देख रही थी कि मैं कर सकती हूँ किस बात पे, तो वो मैं फिर आपको फोन करके पूछती हूँ.
Okay, okay. Thank
थैंक यू
you.
सो मच, थैंक यू
Okay.
सो मच बेटा, थैंक यू सो मच.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Khuda Hafiz.
ओके बाय.
Bye-bye. Okay, so we had another few wonderful callers. So yeah, going back to Bibi Khadija and looking at her role in Islam and looking back at what she did, we should really see that, you know, she was a remarkable woman, and we really need to look up to her as, you know, a personality. And she's really an example for us in our times today. Like I've constantly been repeating that, you know, she shows us one Muslim woman that, you know, we have so much potential and we can do so much in our society today. So now going back to that, another issue that I kind of wanted to cover today was about wearing the hijab. Like people, like outsiders especially, they believe that the hijab is kind of like a restriction on us, that hence why they think that we're oppressed or whatever. But we have to think, is hijab a restriction or is it actually a protection? And essentially, like now we know, like as Muslim women, that a hijab is a protection for us. It is in no way like a restriction. Like for example, if we look at, you know, say for example when you go to get an x-ray, you know how you have to wear the little lead thing, and you may think, oh, this thing is so heavy on me, you know, this doesn't feel good, you know. But is that something that's restricting you, or is it something that's protecting you? No, that lead suit is something that's protecting you. And similarly, like an astronaut in space, you know, the suit, it looks so big and it looks like, oh, the person is probably so hot in there and it looks so uncomfortable, you know. That thing, is that really a restriction or is that a protection for us? So we have to look at it that way, that similarly like the space suit is and like the lead suit is, it's like, it's not a restriction for us, it's essentially something that's protecting us. So we have to similarly think of hijab, our veil, we have to think of it as something that's protecting us. And Azra, do you want to add anything to that whole idea?
Definitely. I could talk forever about hijab, but to sum it up, hijab is, you're right, it's a protection, but to me it's more of an empowerment, because in the West, where girls dress however they want, they're judged on something that is so shallow, like their looks. And people treat them almost like property. You see them in magazines, you see them in, you know, the way people promote, even for like ads like cars, you always see like a woman trying to attract people to buy the product. She's literally a product of advertisement for people because of her looks, and that is so shallow to, you know, to limit of the female gender to just that, like, oh, something that's, you know, attracting people towards something. No, Islam showed us that women are capable of so many other things. We cover ourselves so we're empowered, and so that people judge us by things that are, you know, besides our looks, like our personality, our intellect, our words, our actions, our talents, our skills, whatever we have to contribute to society, you know, everything that we have ever done and everything that we are, everything that we will do, that's what people will focus on instead of something as shallow as our looks. So you'll realize that, you know, personally wearing hijab, I have never received unwanted attention. I was always respected. I was always appreciated for things like my personality, my talents, my achievements in society, rather than, you know, shallow things like, oh, you know, oh, her hair or her this or her that. So that's something that really is empowering, because you realize you're more than just your physical appearance, but you're so many other things as well. So hijab is really, really empowering to women. So I think that's the big takeaway, that hijab is not a limitation, but it's something that actually makes you rise above all these other things and puts you on a pedestal and says, look, don't look at the way she looks, look at what else she can do as a human being. She's so valuable, she has so many talents, and she's worthy of so many other things too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On top of the natural beauty that Allah gave women, you know,
Yeah.
which you reserve for like for your family and things like that.
That's a very, very beautiful point. You know, in society, people tend to look at, you know, your physical looks, and that's essentially, that doesn't even matter. Like Azra said, you know, you have to look at what's inside the person, and we feel like society really focuses on these things. So moving on along, I wanted to go back to a question our caller had. The answer to that question was Bibi Khadija Salam Alaiha passed away when she was 60 to 65 years old, and she passed away after 3 years of being in Shab-e Abi Talib. So that was the answer to that question. So kind of just to conclude our talk today, that we covered different things. We covered, first of all, the role of women in Islam, and we really of women in Islam, and we really have to look at this and see that we have different roles. We have roles at the individual level. We have roles to our personal development, like I mentioned earlier. Our next level role is at the family level. We have to be there to support our families and be a support system, like Bibi Khadija Salamullahi alayha was. And the last level is coming out in the community, doing what we can, what we're passionate about, and spreading the message of Islam and following the footsteps of a great personality who was Bibi Khadija Salamullahi alayha. And other things that we talked about besides the role of women was, of course, focusing on Bibi Khadija Salamullahi alayha's life, and we should really remember her every day in our day-to-day lives, and we should really look back at that. I wanted to clarify something. They spent 3 years in Shab Abi Talib, and that was right after when she passed, Bibi Khadija Salamullahi alayha passed away. Moving on along to conclude what we were doing today. So really we have to know that us as Muslim women, we have potential to do so much, and if Bibi Khadija could do so much in the time, what she did was, her business was like greater than all of the Quraysh trades combined. Like imagine a woman in such times where women were condemned doing so much. So looking back at her, we need to know that we have so much potential, and to reach that full potential, we need to do what we can to reach her, hopefully in her footsteps, and be great Muslim women and be great examples for the generations to follow us. So thank you, Azra, so much for being here today. You made great points, and I hope you all were able to learn something from our discussion today. Would you like to end with any?
No, just final sentence. Just never let anyone think that your gender is a limitation, or it makes you think that you're not good enough. Because in Islam gave women so many rights. It showed that women are prominent members of not only their families but their societies. Women are capable of lots of things, like taking part in politics and business and all these education, and also that women are empowered because we're more than Allah naturally made women beautiful, but on top of that we're empowered because we have more focus on our personality, on our talents, on our skills. And just never ever think that because we have different responsibilities and roles in society, in Islam, never think that means that we're any less, because women are so integral to, we're the mothers of mankind, we're so important. And that gender is never gender never gets in the way of you getting closer to Allah. And you yourself as a girl, as a woman, mothers, daughters, sisters, you are so important to the people around you and to society. So never forget that.
Yeah, it's very beautifully said. So thank you, everybody, and go woman.